It's been a very tough year, we know, for pubs and for the industry in general, and publicans. It has gone quiet for a while, but there is a renewed campaign today. And to talk a little bit about what is happening now, I am joined by Padraig Cribben, who is the head of the Vintners Federation of Ireland. Padraig, you're very welcome this afternoon. I'm sure you didn't expect to be on radio stations and talking about this a year on from the closures last year.
Good afternoon, Sheila. No, we didn't. When we closed on this day 12 months, there was a view that this is 2 to 4 weeks. If it's really bad, we could be out for 6 weeks. And here we are 12 months on. And, it's not just the publicans themselves here. There are 7,000 publican families around the country. But on top of that, there are 50,000 directly employed people. And then there's all of the others, whether they're suppliers, food and drink suppliers, big and small. There are musicians, there are comedians, there are service people who service equipment. There are many, many, many people affected by the fact that the pubs not alone have been closed for 12 months, but that we have no roadmap. And we're not looking for a time frame, but we would like to see the conditions under which the pubs can reopen again. So, yeah, it's 12 months on. It has been a very draining 12 months on businesses, both financially and mentally, we don't have any clear path as to where the future lies.
You mentioned there that you're not specifically looking for a timeline, but rather conditions. What would you see, in your eyes, what are appropriate conditions, or what would you be expecting?
Well, it's not for us to outline the conditions, but I think what we're saying is, look, we need to see if there's a certain level of vaccination complete, if the transmission in the community is down to a certain level, if the hospitalisation is down to a certain level, so that people can begin to see the steps that we need to be at for reopening. Many times during the last 12 months, and this was enormously stressful for publicans and their families and their employees, where we were, to use that phrase, we were led up the garden path a number of times. We were brought to the top of the hill. And 3 or 4 days before opening on a Monday, we were told on the Thursday, no, it's not going to happen. And people had stock bought in. They had staff lined up to come back. They had themselves mentally geared to come back then for that rug to be pulled. We can't have that again this year. It's just not good enough. And the other thing that we can't have this year is this artificial divide that was created last year between food and non-food pubs.
Do you think that is still what's going to happen when we do see some sort of reintroduction of kind of the hospitality sector?
Well, the problem, Sheila, is that we have no indication of what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the significant challenges that we have at the moment. And that's why we really need to see a roadmap. Not as I say, not dates, etc., but a roadmap as the conditions under which we can reopen so that people can begin to plan. It's not a business, and we have tried, but I think we have failed to get this message, no matter how hard I have tried to get it across to government. It's not a business where you switch on a light on a Monday morning and everything is fine. You got to get stock in. If you take it, the brewers have not brewed beer for some time. Yeah, brewing has to commence. That product has got to be distributed out to 7,000 publicans. It's a business that needs a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks lead-in time.
Would there also be fears that were similar to those expressed last year, when the North was opened and yet we still weren't? Are there fears that the North will go ahead of us and we still won't have a timeline, and we'll see, especially along here, people travelling over the border again?
I think it's even going to be a much bigger challenge this year, because what we're now seeing is that the North are going to be very well ahead of us in terms of vaccination. If the North follows the path that England are supposed to be following, they will be wide open way earlier than we are, and that is going to be a massive challenge right from Donegal across to Louth.
So I know that you have launched a campaign today. What is the message that you're really trying to get across? And also, do you feel like you are actually being heard by the government, or is there any breakthroughs at all?
Well, I have to say I'm blown away by the reaction of publicans today to the social media campaign, which is really to spell out to government that this business and the people within the business are not disposable. Because there has been a feeling among many within the business that, government, we're at the end of the queue. We recognise that in the context of reopening, that we will be close enough to the end of the queue. But, it's this concept that government are basically saying, we'll get to you when we get to you. That's not good enough, and we're not disposable. And as I say, I've been blown away by the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of publicans that have taken part in this campaign today, and to get the message to the Taoiseach, to the Taoiseach, to those in power, that the publicans, their employees and the people dependent on them are not disposable. In actual fact, they're quite essential to a lot of communities around the country.
So if you had a final message, what do you want government to do? Is it immediate action? Is it to meet with you? What is the overall outcome?
No, we've had numerous meetings with government. The problem is that I don't see them as being overly productive, because government they haven't got their heads around to looking at what the conditions that are necessary for reopening. I think the fundamental message to government today is, we need to get the conditions for reopening. As I keep stressing, it's not about dates, it's about the conditions for reopening. We do understand, we do believe that public health has to be a priority, I should say that, but the message is, I think we've two clear messages. Let us know what the conditions are. Be very clear, there should be no divide between the food and the non-food, and put in place the financial supports that are necessary to make sure that these businesses can be there when reopening occurs.
Okay, well look, Padraig, we'll leave it there for this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me and highlighting that and the current campaign that is ongoing. That's Padraig Cribben there from the Vintners Federation of Ireland. Following on from that, we do have some local reaction to a year on from when the pubs closed. Now, you may remember my next guest from last year, because he was one of the publicans who did go to Dublin to protest and ended up meeting the Taoiseach at government buildings. So Brian Renahan, he owns Renahan's in Clontibbert, that I'm sure some of our listeners will know. He said that it has been a terrible year for pubs, and I mean, he did not think that we would still be in a worse situation this time round. So I spoke to Brian just before the show. I wanted to get his reaction and his thoughts about pubs and the industry now and where they're standing.
My reaction now, I'm totally disheartened, and there's one thing that you need in your life, and that's hope. And at the present time, I don't know one publican that has any hope. And if you're living your life day to day without any hope, you're in a very bad place. And that's where each and every publican in this country is at the minute, in a very bad place, both mentally and financially. To carry on like this, when you get up every morning and you've no hope, you can see no light at the end of the tunnel, you're not in a good place. And that's the way we are, because we can't see anything. We opened up last year for 16 days. 16 days from... We actually closed on the Sunday night, the 14th of March last year, or the Saturday night, the 14th of March last year, because we were all looking at the reports coming back from Spain and Italy and seeing the hospitals filling up with people. And we wanted to protect our community. Like, every pub closed to protect the community. We were patriotic. We done the right thing, and we were the first ones. We were the first ones to lead the charge in that respect. We were the ones. It was nobody else. It was the publicans, and we have been. There's a slogan that we have this weekend: "We're not disposable." But that's how we feel at the minute. We feel as if we are disposable, completely. Now we have become we have become just irrelevant completely in the government eyes. They've looked after everybody else, but they're not looking at they need to sit down, the publicans now, and discuss with us a way forward to get out of this place that we're in at the minute. I know the numbers have been high, but now we can see the numbers coming down. And if this summer is anything to go by last summer, I think we'd be well fit to open up for the summer months without a bit of bother. And hopefully with the vaccine rollout, would be in a much better place. But the government aren't giving us, any hope at all.
You mentioned there hope, and it's quite sad to hear it really. But at what point did you start to feel like this? Because there were probably times where you thought, okay, we'll get back up and running now. It will be okay. At what point in this cycle of COVID have you just felt kind of almost like giving up and like there isn't any hope?
Last year when we went to Dublin, we were in a bad place because we thought that it was sort of hopeless at that stage. We get no government aid at that stage whatsoever. All our funds that we had sitting there were gone. Our overdrafts had got that big at that stage because we'd still our bills to pay and no money coming in. And a lot of the pubs were taking out term loans then to cover their expenses. So we got open then for them 16 days. Then the number started to increase, and we thought that perhaps maybe we'll get open for Christmas. But they sort of opened up everyone else and didn't open us. And I personally think if they had opened us, the numbers would not have been as bad, because if the pubs had been open, there would have been none of your house parties, none of your get-togethers in the houses. People would have been pubs, and the pubs were well run. The publicans did run their establishments well. They had all the different things there. Like they had the hand sanitizers, or the social distancing. They were very, very careful. And I don't believe that there was one outbreak or one cluster in one pub in Ireland last year, and that is the reality of it.
Mm. Are you at a stage now, either yourselves and other publicans that maybe you would speak to, where there's many of you that maybe won't make it through this one, won't make it over the line, that had things been done earlier, they might have seen this through?
I have been speaking to different publicans, and there's a lot of publicans in a bad place mentally at the minute. Like, this your phone could ring at 5 o'clock in the morning with another publican on it, because you can't sleep. Their debts are that big now. They're getting into a bad place. And, there was a survey done with tourists coming into Ireland, and one of the main things that they came for was the traditional Irish pub. If things keep going the way they're going, and the government don't step in with proper measures to help us going forward, if you want to go to a traditional Irish pub, you'd have to go to London or Moscow or Boston or somewhere like that to see it, because there'll be none left here. That is the stark reality of it. That is how bad the thing is.
Is it? Are we looking at the kind of almost the death of the Irish pub if there isn't more done?
There's no doubt that's what's going to happen. Mm. Absolutely no doubt. That's what's going to happen if something more is not done. And the government, the publicans know how to operate their own business, and the government have seemed to be listening to other people speaking about what they should do for the pubs, but they need to sit down with the publicans on their own and talk to them and listen to them, and we can tell them where we think we can going forward what we need, and it's not going to take that much to do it. But if they work with us, like the publicans, we have worked with the government all along. We've not been out protesting on the streets. We haven't gone to Dublin in mass numbers. We've done none of them things. We have followed the line. We have followed the rules and regulations. So if they were to sit down with us and have a proper discussion about what we need going forward, that's what we need at the present time.
Because it does seem to me that, there was a bit of a conversation back last year about when the pubs would reopen, but that has gone now. That has just completely stopped that conversation, because obviously the case numbers got so high. Do you feel now it's time that conversation opens back up? And also, what kind of immediate help do you need from the government?
The conversation needs to open up. You see, and I think we need to stop talking about case numbers. I think that has to stop. What we need to start talking about is hospital numbers. That's the important one. It's not the case numbers, it's the hospital numbers. They're the ones that make the difference. So we need to start, moving our focus away from case numbers to hospital numbers. That's the first thing. And then, if the government, will sit down with us, and we're going to need help. We're going to need grant help and financial aid. And the government, in fairness to them, did give us some financial aid there, but now we're going to be taxed on that. So they're going to take the half of back off us again. So where does that leave us? Yeah. It's incredible what's going on. And 70% of Ireland's population has saved money during this pandemic because they haven't been fit to go on holiday. The banks are stuffed with money. The savings coming in that much. They don't know what to do with it. They're not giving out as much loans. It's all these savings coming in. And every publican in the country that stood up and, done the patriotic thing, closed for the country, they have been left in wreck and ruin. And as I said earlier on, with no hope. And when you have no hope, where are you going? It's difficult to get up in the morning. It's difficult to go to sleep at night. That's where we're at. And every publican's the same. You'll meet us and we'll put a smile on our face and we'll chat to you and all the rest. But behind that, nobody knows the stress and struggle that we're under. I have different publicans ringing me, and we're all, one thing that this has done is brought a lot of publicans very close to one another. We've become a real good family now, and we're there helping one another. And only for that, with the VFI, with a group in Monaghan, for example, and we'll be very close and all work for one another and with one another now to keep each other right, to try and keep the spirits up. But at this stage now, we need to look at hospital admissions. We need to be sitting down with government and saying, right, if we can get the numbers down to this level here, this is the hospital admissions that we can work with that there. You used to be fit to go, you used to be ready to go. And if they would sit down with us and discuss these things, and we could say to them, well, listen, this is what we need, and this is what we can do to make our businesses more sustainable, and this is what we can do to make our businesses more safer than what they are, But we're going to need help.
And I know that there is a campaign that's being started on social media now, and it kind of, we're talking about pub owners here, but we also forget that there's multiple staff members as well in each of these places that are also out of work with all this time. And so that campaign is to do with what you were speaking about earlier about not being disposable. Are you going to be getting involved in that, and what is the campaign?
Well, the campaign is a social media campaign at the minute with hashtag We Are Not Disposable. And we're all getting involved in that. And it's, as you said, a lot of pubs, the busier pubs will have a lot of staff, and they haven't worked either. And they had a very poor Christmas. And they had a very poor New Year, and kids starting to go back to school and all the rest. Very, very difficult for them. And we don't forget about them. So there's a campaign started, We Are Not Disposable, to highlight the fact that the government has treated us as if we are disposable. And it's the whole industry. And when I talk about the industry, it's not just the publicans, it's the bar staff. It's the guy that maybe sits in the stool in the corner for Friday night playing his guitar and singing a few songs for a few bobs to pay his bills as well. It's everybody. So this is the campaign we're starting this minute.
And you'll be doing it from a Renahan's pub as well, will you?
Renahan's pub, yeah. We'll put out a tweet and bits and pieces of social media, and most pubs are doing the same.